Welcome to the deep dive. We grab a stack of sources, pull out the key insights, aiming to get you up to speed with some interesting facts, maybe a bit of humor too. Now, when you hear neurodivergence, you probably think about conditions someone's born with, right? Like autism, ADHD stuff, where the brain's just wired differently from day one. And that's a common way to see it.
It is, absolutely. That's the typical understanding. But what if that wiring, the way someone basically experiences everything, suddenly changes later in life?
Yeah, what if the brain itself transforms, kind of altering their whole cognitive world?
Exactly.
And that's the really fascinating and honestly pretty impactful area we're jumping into today, acquired neurodivergence. It's maybe not a term you hear every day, but it really reshapes lives.
It does. And communities, too.
So our goal here, our mission for this deep dive, is to unpack what acquired neurodivergence actually means. We want to explore the diverse reasons it happens, get a handle on the emotional side, the social impact, and really importantly, give you some insights on how to better support people whose brains have gone through this kind of major change.
And what's really gripping, I think, is that this isn't just, a medical label. It's about sudden shifts in who someone is, their identity. It's about resilience.
Well, yeah.
And the brain's just incredible ability to adapt. It's kind of amazing, actually. Understanding this really helps us see the whole wide spectrum of human experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start at the beginning then. For anyone maybe new to this idea, how would you define it? What is acquired neurodivergence at its core?
Okay, so at its core, acquired neurodivergence is basically when someone who was previously considered, let's say, neurotypical, their brain worked in a pretty standard way, goes through some kind of significant change.
Right.
And that change leads to new, lasting differences in how they think or learn or behave.
So lasting differences. We're not just talking about having an off week or being forgetful for a bit. This sounds more fundamental.
Exactly. That's the key. Lasting and fundamental. These aren't like temporary glitches. These changes often really reshape how someone processes the world around them, how they interact, even how they see themselves. It alters their cognitive patterns pretty deeply, so they need new ways to adapt, both to the outside world and, their own internal experience.
That sounds like a massive transformation. So given that, what sort of things lead to this? What causes acquired neurodivergence? I'm guessing it's not just one thing?
No, you're absolutely right. The causes are really varied. They can range from very sudden events to things that happen more slowly, more progressively.
Okay.
So a really common one is traumatic brain injury, TBI. You see this with, car accidents, bad falls, sports injuries.
Yeah.
Basically any direct physical hit that damages brain tissue.
Right, a physical injury. That makes sense. That's probably what people often think of first.
It often is. But the brain is vulnerable in other ways, too. Another big cause is stroke. That's when blood flow to part of the brain gets cut off, maybe by a clot or a burst blood vessel.
Yeah.
And the impact there can be huge, affecting things like speech or memory or movement, often very suddenly.
Wow.
Then you've got things like serious infections, meningitis, encephalitis. These can cause inflammation in the brain or around it, leading to pretty significant, often quite sudden neurological changes.
Those all sound pretty dramatic, sudden events. But you mentioned more gradual things, too.
Good point, yeah.
Yeah.
Neurodegenerative diseases fit here as well. These are conditions that sort of chip away at brain function over time, progressively. Think about Parkinson's or different types of dementia.
Ah, okay, so not always a single event.
Exactly. The changes happen slowly, over years sometimes. And it's not always purely physical in the sense of an injury or disease like that. Sometimes really severe mental health crises or intense psychological trauma like PTSD.
PTSD. Right.
That can also fundamentally reshape how the brain processes things, how it responds emotionally. It can effectively, rewire the brain's responses, leading to acquired neurodivergence too.
And that makes me think, are we seeing this show up in new ways now? Like in our modern world?
That's a really sharp observation. Yes. A very current, very relevant example is long COVID. We're seeing a connection between long COVID and cognitive difficulties for some people.
The brain fog people talk about.
Exactly that. Persistent brain fog, memory problems, trouble focusing. These things can stick around for months, even years after the initial infection for some. It really shows this is an ongoing, evolving area, is not a closed book.
So just to make sure we're clear on the landscape, how is all this different from, say, autism or dyslexia, the kind of neurodivergence people usually think of, developmental neurodivergence?
Right. That's a really important distinction. Developmental neurodivergent, things like autism, ADHD, dyslexia, that's present very early in life, often right from birth. The brain just develops differently from the get-go.
So that's just how that person's brain works? It's always been that way? Their baseline, maybe?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
It's their original neurological setup. With acquired neurodivergence, though, the change happens after some kind of major life event. A TBI, a stroke, that infection.
Oh, okay. So the key is the timing.
Exactly. This person likely lived maybe most of their life functioning in a neurotypical way without these specific challenges. And then often, quite suddenly, their world changes because their brain changes. That sudden after-the-fact shift is what really defines acquired neurodivergence. It creates a real before and after.
Wow. That sudden shift, I mean, the emotional weight of that must be immense, not just for the person, but for their whole family, surely. It's like grappling with a whole new reality.
Oh, absolutely. The emotional side is huge and often incredibly difficult. For the person themselves, it can feel like a profound loss of the self they knew. They're navigating this totally unfamiliar internal landscape.
Yeah.
And for families, well, they're watching someone they love go through this fundamental change, have to adapt to a new dynamic, and often there's a grieving process for the person they knew before,
Yeah.
even while they're supporting the person who's here now.
I can only imagine the kind of shock, the disorientation, when your own brain just doesn't work the way it always has.
It's a massive shock. It's like an existential earthquake almost. Think about it. Maybe you were always fluent, words just came easily, and then after a stroke, you're struggling, really struggling, just to find basic words.
Oh, wow.
Or maybe you were super organized, really sharp on top of everything, and then a head injury leaves you with major memory gaps. You can't focus like you used to. It can lead to just deep frustration, a real sense of losing your identity. And yeah, sometimes depression too. It's like looking in the mirror and not quite recognizing the person, or at least their inner world.
That paints a really vivid picture. And I bet the outside world doesn't always make it easier. There must be a lot of misunderstandings.
That's a huge challenge, honestly.
Yeah.
So often people face misunderstanding from the very people closest to them, friends, colleagues, sometimes even family.
Yeah.
There's this common idea, and it's really damaging, that they should just, get better or snap out of it and go back to how they were.
Right. Like it's just a matter of time or effort.
Exactly. But it's crucial to get that acquired neurodivergence often means permanent changes. It's less about getting back to the old normal and more about finding and adapting to a new normal. That lack of understanding can make people feel incredibly isolated, which just adds another layer of difficulty.
Which is exactly why we need to bust some of these myths. They really get in the way of actual support. So let's tackle one. Myth number 1, they'll eventually be exactly the same as before.
Yeah, that's a tough one and often comes from a place of hope, but it's not always realistic. The truth is, while rehab and therapy are incredibly important, vital, actually for recovery and adapting, many people live with lasting differences.
So the goalposts shift.
Precisely. The goal moves away from getting back to 100% the same and focuses much more on adapting, finding new strategies, new ways to thrive, building a new baseline for what well-being looks like for them now. It's adaptation, redefining capability, not always full restoration.
Okay, that leads us straight into myth number 2, and this one feels particularly, harmful. They're less intelligent now.
It really is harmful because it's such an oversimplification of what intelligence even is. Intelligence isn't just one thing, right? It's complex. It has many facets.
Right.
A brain injury or illness might impact one specific area, maybe language or executive function, which is like the brain's CEO for planning, focus, making decisions.
Okay.
But other skills might be completely untouched.
Yeah.
And what's really fascinating sometimes is that new strengths or even creative abilities can emerge. Things they couldn't do before.
Really? Like new talent?
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay.
The key takeaway is that intelligence isn't lessened overall. It might just be changed, redistributed. Some functions might be harder, others might be the same, and sometimes new pathways open up. It's about alteration, not just reduction.
That's a much better way to think about it. Not less, just different. Okay, and then there's myth number 3, the one that kind of puts the blame on the person. They just need to try harder.
Yeah. That one is not only wrong, it's deeply unfair. We have to stress this. Willpower alone cannot undo neurological changes. These are real, physical, or functional shifts in the brain.
It's not about effort.
Not solely, no. What actually helps, what makes a real difference, is sustained support, empathy. Targeted therapies designed for their specific challenges, speech therapy, occupational therapy, and practical accommodations in their environment, at home, work, socially. It needs understanding and systemic support, not just telling someone to try harder.
Okay, so if we understand that, what can people actually do? Families, friends, communities. How can they provide real, meaningful support? Because that's where it gets practical.
Right. The absolute bedrock is patience and empathy. Recovery, or adaptation rather, it's almost never a straight line. There are good days, bad days, steps forward, steps back. It just requires huge understanding.
Patience. Got it.
And secondly, celebrate the progress, no matter how small it seems. A tiny step forward might represent enormous effort for that person. Acknowledging those wins, validating that effort, it reinforces progress and gives hope.
That makes a lot of sense. What about practical things? Tools, professional help?
Oh yeah, practical aids can be game changers. Suggesting or helping set up adaptive tools, things like speech-to-text software on a phone or computer, memory aid apps, maybe physical aids for getting around or doing daily tasks. These can really boost independence and cut down on frustration.
Like specific apps and tech.
Exactly. And beyond that, encouraging and helping them access specialized therapy is key. Speech therapy, occupational therapy for daily living skills, psychotherapy to deal with the emotional impact. These can be absolutely life-changing. They offer real strategies.
And I imagine isolation can be a huge issue too, feeling cut off.
That's critical. Staying connected is so important. Actively fighting against isolation, keeping the person involved socially, inviting them to things, maintaining friendships. Even if interactions are different now, it's vital for their mental health and overall well-being. It reminds them they're still part of things.
What really stands out here, and you touched on this, is remembering the person beyond the condition, not letting the injury or illness define who they are.
Yes, that is maybe the most crucial piece of advice. We absolutely cannot define someone just by their injury or their diagnosis. They are still them. They're whole people with history, personality, value. Even if some things have changed profoundly, their identity is so much bigger than the medical label.
You know, despite all these immense challenges, we hear these incredible stories of resilience, right? People don't just cope. Sometimes they find completely new strengths, new directions.
Absolutely. It's truly inspiring. Many people discover unexpected strength or find new paths they never would have considered before they acquired neurodivergence. You hear amazing stories.
Like what?
Well, like someone who maybe had a stroke and lost some verbal skills, but then discovers this incredible talent for painting or sculpture, expressing themselves in a whole new way. Or someone who goes through a TBI and becomes this passionate advocate, using their experience to help others, to push for better support systems.
I've heard accounts like that too. People who, after a brain injury, suddenly tap into creative abilities they just didn't have before. It's almost, well, mysterious, isn't it?
It really is mysterious. It speaks volumes about neuroplasticity. The brain's incredible ability to reorganize itself, to form new connections. It's not just repairing, it's like the brain is rewriting its own map when one road gets blocked.
Finding detours, maybe?
Yeah, by finding detours, building new pathways. It shows the brain isn't static. It's dynamic, constantly adapting. And sometimes those new pathways lead to unexpected, even beautiful places. It's pretty awe-inspiring when you think about it.
So let's try and wrap up our deep dive here. The core message seems to be acquired neurodivergence changes a life, definitely, but it absolutely doesn't end it. It's a huge shift, a new chapter, but not the final page.
Precisely. With the right mix of support, real acceptance, and using the right tools and therapies, people can adapt. They can redefine what they're capable of, and they can actually thrive in new, meaningful ways. Their journey is, honestly, a testament to human resilience.
And for any of our listeners who've maybe experienced this themselves or know someone who has, your story is important. Your journey is valid. It's a vital part of the incredible diversity of human brains.
So, maybe something to think about. If our brains can adapt so profoundly, rewire themselves after such unexpected, often traumatic changes, what does that suggest about the hidden potential, the adaptability that might be lying dormant inside all of us? What new perspectives, what new capabilities might be waiting to emerge if our own brain had to write a new map?
That's a really powerful thought to end on. Thank you for joining us for this really important deep dive. We'll be back soon with more insights.